we've got questions about private lending from everything from, can you match me up with someone to, take my money? That one we get probably, on a weekly basis, I would say, to, how do I vet someone that I'm going to give my money to? What kind of questions can I ask? And what kind of security can I ask for? So I wanted to address that because, private lending is an amazing way to be able to invest in real estate without having to do any work. How many of us love the theory of real estate, love the overall concepts of it? We know it's good. We know it's smart, but we also know that our lives don't have time for it right now and that we are about max in our lives. So private lending is a way that you can benefit from real estate without having to do all of that time in.
It's a way to get a higher rate of interest on your money if you are going to lend it out to somebody. Is the risk higher? Potentially. How can you keep that risk lower? Well, there's several ways you can keep that risk lower, but you have that ability to make a higher interest rate than if you just left your money in the bank or you put it under a mattress. Or you even sometimes investing in, we invested in some crypto currency a few months ago, and my goodness, it was a bad time because it's gone down to a third of the value that it was then. So these types of things,
I love it.
Yeah, Tiff's hearing that for the first time. But these types of things, guys,
we did it knowing though with play money, like we did it to see. Like, let's do it so we get our feet wet so that if and when we put some real money into it, then, we know what the heck we're doing or whatever. It felt a little bit of the market.
Yeah, a little test, just for fun. That's my point. The point is when we invest our money, we want it to be secure as possible. We want to make the highest rate of interest as possible, the highest ROI that we can as possible.
I'm going to tell you what I ask for. Corey's going to tell you what he asks for, because yes, indeed, it is different. Okay, so myself, I ask any question that I need to know at that time from that person. So, for example, if it's somebody that I don't know well, and I don't know how their past projects are, maybe I'll ask them for some references and ask them for specific walkthrough of how their past projects went, how the numbers worked out. And let me tell you, it doesn't have to mean that they got home runs every single time, but I want to know how the numbers worked out and how they dealt with the things that
sometimes
happened.
It's better if they didn't have a home run all the time, because they learned how to deal with some of the negative things that happen. They've maybe overcome some of the expectations they had and they didn't quite meet. So how do they deal with that? And that's actually quite important.
So one investor that we talked to recently, she, not too recently, actually, probably a year and a half ago, I said to her, so have you ever had a deal go bad where the projections that you were hoping for didn't come through and you had investors on the deal? And she said, absolutely, I did. She said, I had one really not great deal. She's like, it wasn't terrible, but we didn't hit projection. I said, so what did you do? Because of course there's no guarantee on our money when we private lend, right? We hope to get a certain amount, but what if we don't? And she says, well, thank goodness I had other projects going on and I took the benefits, my share of those, and I paid out those investors. And you could talk to them if you wanted. I can give you their name and number and they can attest to the fact that certainly we did. To me, I'm like, great. Good. It's a person of their word. To me, that's quite important. So
let me throw in my 2 cents, okay, when it comes to private lending and when it comes to giving, whether it's private lending or whether it's giving somebody money in a joint venture or whether it's whatever money that we're going to invest. This sounds like a totally non-technical answer, okay? I think it's extremely important is you have to have a good gut feel. Okay, so what I mean by
funny
that,
from the non-emotional guy.
Totally, and but what I mean by that is when you're going to buy something and you or invest in something, and something just doesn't quite feel right. You maybe don't feel quite as secure as you should have, or maybe there's corners that were cut right at the last minute when you're going to sign the paperwork, or all of those things that can happen, and you just get a bad gut feel. It's at that point where you really got to check to make sure you're doing the right thing. Because to me, gut feel is extremely important when it comes to buying a property, investing, private lending, when it goes to joint venturing, when it goes to putting a tenant in your property. You really, really should rely on that. And it's not a technical answer, but it's a very important
especially when the gut feel is
bar
saying no.
to look at.
Because lots of times lots of times we're overly trusting and overly easy, but ask those tough questions and listen for the answer and make sure they're answering. Make sure they're actually giving you an answer, not running around with a big long answer that you're like, wait a second, they didn't answer my question. And the way I do that is I write down my question so that I can write down the answer beside it. And if I find that I can't figure out what the answer is that they gave me, then I'm like, wait a second, they're just distracting me. I don't even know what their answer is. And here's the thing. There's no right or wrong answer. Any question that you have, it's your money. You don't have to feel bad about asking questions. I ask for credit. I want to know what people's credit is. I know that's personal. I know that's intrusive. If they're not okay with it, I am totally fine with that. I'm not offended either, or like, oh, they've got something to hide. No. Like, they don't necessarily have something to hide. Maybe they just aren't an open book. That's okay. But guess what? My dealings are with people that have open books because I need to have that assurance. So for me, if I want to see someone's credit, that is paramount. And, including it in your credibility packages, your presentations, that sort of thing really just adds that little bit of credibility that they haven't even asked for perhaps, but it makes a big, huge difference. And people say, isn't that too personal? Hell yeah. I'm sorry. Yes, that is very personal. But so is my money. So is my hard-earned money. So is my parents' retirement. So are my kids' educations. So are my vacations, that money could be going to instead. That's personal too. So don't be shy, guys. Ask the questions that you need to ask. And most importantly, if it doesn't feel right, or if they seem super, super fantastically overly promising, run for the hills. Okay. Because there's going to be a lot of people that come out of the woodwork in the next little while. There's going to be a lot of money that's needed. A lot of it is going to need to pay for things that were planned ahead of time, changing markets. You're going to see a lot more of this coming out here in the recent times. So be prepared.